Stories Healed Now, where we share the stories of individuals who have faced some insurmountable odds. But the good news is that they were able to overcome. We want to share those testimonies and joys with you. It is my honor and my pleasure to welcome to the stage Souraya Christine.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. I am so excited. I know that one of the things that is so important on this show is that it was born out of giving hope. And you have a story and a testimony, and I'm looking so forward to the audience hearing about your journey. Would you share a little bit with them?
Absolutely. So I basically was conceived in trauma and subsequently suffered a lot of it early on in childhood that followed me through adulthood. But the good news is I'm standing here today. So,
Well, what kind of trauma was that?
oh
Talk
gosh,
to us about what that meant.
we
Where
can,
are you starting from?
yeah, we can start from conception. I am actually the product of rape. And so thankfully, my mom decided to have me. And after that, I was molested early on, 5 years old, then again at 7 years old for 4 years. Learned a lot about my existence, family lies. I didn't know that I was the product of rape until about 2 years ago. And so I thought that someone else was my dad. My grandfather passed when I was 11 and decided to disclose the information that the person I thought was my dad was not. So subsequently, I spent the rest of my years trying to figure out my actual story. At the same time, though, I was coming out of the trauma of molestation and starting middle school, which is enough in and of itself.
Wow.
And got date raped at 15 and became a domestic violence wife at 18. So I was abused for a while, almost killed in that relationship. Subsequently had a few more of those instances. And yeah, and just it's been a journey.
Well, it has been a journey.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're standing here and you're willing to share your story says a lot.
Thank
It also says a lot about your perseverance and your ability to overcome trauma that you have faced.
you.
But one of the things that when we talk about trauma, people can tell a story. They can say, this is what happened, this is what occurred. But we never get down to really talking about the emotions, the
Yeah.
feelings, how do you deal with it? How do you move forward? So since this started at such a very young age with you in multiple kinds of trauma, how did you express yourself? How did you deal with the emotions behind it? To you, as you were going along, was this just normal? Is this the way it was supposed to be? How did you understand that it wasn't?
So to answer your question, it was a bit of a conflict. So part of me did believe that this was normal. This was just how everybody was raised, right? Because it was kind of a what happens in the house stays in the house. So I wasn't able to talk about the things that were happening to me outside of the home. So nobody else knew. So I just assumed that it was normal. But there was also a part of me that understood that this was painful. This couldn't be wholly right because it wasn't feeling very good to me. So what I started to do was write. And that's how ultimately I became a writer. Writing was my way of expressing all that I was stuffing on the inside and not able to tell anyone. I was able to tell that paper, And so I started writing poetry and I started just basically journaling and writing my feelings down on paper. And honestly, I believe that's how I survived it all.
That's interesting. We talk about mechanisms for being able to cope and how do we get through them and what do we do. And the fact that you used a tool
Yes.
of writing to be able to express what was going on. Was
Yes.
there ever a point that you felt comfortable enough sharing this writing, or did you just hide it all these years?
I hid it. I hid it all the years. I have never shared what I wrote as a child ever. And I don't even know what happened to all of those writings. Ultimately, the secret came out, when I was 11 years old. And my grandmother actually, so my grandmother, my mom had went shopping one day and left me with the living boyfriend who was molesting me. And that day, my grandmother must have just known that something wasn't right when they came back. And she looked me square in the eye and she said, "Did he do something to you?" Mind you, it had been 4 years since he's been doing something to me. And I just let it all out in that moment. I don't even know why, that moment was the moment, but it was. And I'm grateful that it was. And so subsequently from there, he got put out, obviously. We went through legal channels. So he was arrested and he was a firefighter for our city. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And so he was a Cleveland firefighter. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So when this, after, you're 11 and this actually happens and you're going through this challenge, and I'm sure that it caused some upheaval in the household, right? You can't let something like this out
Yeah.
and it not feel like, is this my fault? Did
Yeah.
I contribute to something? What did I do? We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, I want to explore a little bit more of how you dealt with the household trauma. There's so many people who are going through this.
Yeah.
When they finally get it out, they're finally told the truth. The amount of emotions that are inside of the household,
Oh, yeah.
cutting through them, like, is mom angry? What did that look like? And was there anything taken out on you because you did it? Did you feel there was? And if there was, how did you overcome that? So we're going to take a station break, and I'd love to get your insights then. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When I was in college, I had a college professor to tell me I would never, ever make it in technology. He told me that I needed to change my career, all because I took a test and got a D after studying so very hard. I knew at that point that I had to learn the game of life and survival. How did I do that? I really put on my game face so that they never knew what to expect, when, where, or how. See, life has all of its journeys and obstacles. We all have a story to tell, and we have many different paths that we take. My journey to this moment has not been easy. You have to play the game, play to win, and you win by wearing your game face. Welcome back. Those of you that have tuned in know that we're really talking about perseverance. We're talking about someone who has overcome so much and is successful in standing. What a blessing. Let's continue the conversation. So how did you're 11, your grandmother knows, you go through prosecution, but you still have a mom that was with this man. You still have an environment. Did you ever feel as though it was your fault? What kinds of emotions were going on in the household, and how did you deal with that?
So all of the emotions I feel like were mine. I don't remember my mom having a lot of emotions. What I do remember is feeling guilty, because I was kind of developed for a young age. And, I was always thinking, well, did I do something to make him feel like that about me? But again, it started at age 7, so. But I remember, because also remember my grandfather was dying at that time, and he had told me the family secret too about the fact that my dad wasn't really my dad. So all of this literally happened at the same time. So I started to feel a sense of hatred actually toward my mom. I really, I couldn't understand, one, how you would lie to me my entire life thus far, and two, how you would allow me to be molested under your roof for 4 years. At that time, those were the thoughts that I was having, and it made me very angry, made me very bitter toward her, but also toward life in general, because the first molestation at 5 was actually from a female cousin. And so by this point, I didn't trust anyone. Nobody. I didn't like anybody. I didn't trust anybody. So I started on a spiral of just being angry and bitter, and the hatred continuing to grow inside of me. And so I started to act out even more, even worse than I already was, because I was being molested. So I'd already started acting out, but I was super smart. So I was in conflict because I was highly intelligent, but I was acting out tremendously in school and pretty much anywhere, because there was so much pain and, just angst growing on the inside of me. So that's kind of what I was dealing with. I remember my mom and my grandmother at the moment it all came out, like, we're not going to talk about this again. So I never got any help. I never got any counseling. I never got anything. And nobody ever talks about it again. So I couldn't talk to them, and they acted like nothing ever happened. But for me, I have all of this pain, all of this muck, all of this mire continuing to grow on the inside of me because I hadn't been able to properly deal with any of it.
So the fact that you didn't deal with it, is that when you picked up on more of your writing to be able to deal with it at that point? How did you get through this anger? This is the root of what people are dealing with.
Yeah.
How do you get through the anger? I'm so mad.
Yeah.
My mom didn't tell me the truth. I'm angry. How do I handle this? What do I do when I don't have someone to talk to?
So what I will say is, don't do what I did, which was, no, I didn't fall deeper into writing. I actually pulled back from writing at that time, and I just started to, like I said, I acted out. I got, like, into the streets and just I acted crazy. I kind of went on a wild spiral, and I wanted to be part of the hood and so that started to gain my attention. So I wanted to be involved in those sorts of things. And so I started hanging out, with those types of people, and just, the fights and I was angry, right? And so then, as I got a little bit older, I got into sex. And so that I became promiscuous, and it was just a spiral, and it continued. And I started drinking as a teenager. And I started drinking, like, I would walk to school with 32-ounce cups of liquor, and so that's kind of how I dealt with it as a teen. And I just stayed angry.
So what was the light bulb that changed this for you?
It took a while. It took a while. I became a parent at 16, and that helped a little bit, as far as kind of reeling me back in, but not as much as you would think. So I kind of handed my daughter over to my mom because I still wanted to be a part of the streets. So it was not until my 20s probably, and I started having anxiety attacks. And so I knew that something had to change because I still had been carrying all of these things. And so I started to journal. So I started back with writing, and I started to journal, and that helped. And I started to remember all of the things that I had suppressed, and I started just kind of going on a timeline, basically, of the things that were happening. But then ultimately, I kind of tucked that away for a while and kind of ended up back wild again out there in the world. So I kind of went through a lot of hills and valleys.
So your mom had your daughter
Mhm.
and kept her for a while. When was it at the point that you said, no, I want to be a mom. I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so I got my daughter back probably, and I was in and out of her life, but I got her back probably around 5 or 6 maybe, and moved to Atlanta, actually, from Cleveland. We moved to Atlanta for a couple of years. And that's when I started doing the journaling. Then ultimately, after a couple years, we moved back to Ohio. And so I pretty much had her. She spent a lot of time with my mom still because they had bonded, you know. But I did have her for the most part, and then ended up having another child at 23. And now I have 3 children. So
Okay. So going through this process and recognizing that you had to get it together, right? And you came to Atlanta. We're going to take a station break, but when we come back, I really want to understand after you got here, what were the steps you took to say, okay, what I've been doing isn't working.
yeah,
What I need to do has to change.
yeah,
I want to change my life because you wouldn't be here today
yeah,
if you had not made those commitments to yourself, right?
true.
The strength wouldn't be there. Something gave you that motivation.
Yeah.
And then even after having subsequent children after that, I think it's important to help our audience understand you can fall, but you can get back up.
That's right.
And the way you get back up and how you handle it going
Yeah.
forward is what's going to give you that success as we
Yes.
move forward. So we're going to take a station break. When we come back, I'd like to follow up on that and see if we have a question or comment from the audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
When I was in college, I had a college professor to tell me I would never, ever make it in technology. He told me that I needed to change my career, all because I took a test and got a D after studying so very hard. I knew at that point that I had to learn the game of life and survival. How did I do that? I really put on my game face so that they never knew what to expect, when, where, or how. See, life has all of its journeys and obstacles. We all have a story to tell, and we have many different paths that we take. My journey to this moment has not been easy. You have to play the game, play to win, and you win by wearing your game face. Welcome back. So let's talk a little bit, Samaya, about before we left for station break, and we were talking where you are, at that point when you came to Atlanta, and you said that you moved here. You did go back to Ohio every now and then, but something gave you that motivation. Was it after the second child? Was it before that? What made you say, I can do this and I will?
So no, it took a while actually. Unfortunately, being the parent of a couple kids at the time didn't get me to where I needed to go. I still was pretty wild. I even went through a bout of suicidal ideations after the second child. So I had moved back to Ohio, and then from Ohio, I moved to Nevada, actually. I was in Nevada, still mildly wild. I won't say that I was where I was because I had started to grow and mature a little bit. However, what happened was I was in the middle of some very wild acts, let's just say that. And I am very sure that I heard the voice of God say to me, it's either now or never. You're going to follow me or you're not. And that's what it was for me. So I had, prior to that, had started to go to church, but then I had stopped, and still doing the same things that I was doing before. So when I got in that particular environment and heard that voice speak to me, I started back into church, and I didn't know what to do. So I found on Facebook actually posting for a women's conference and I wanted to go, but I didn't have the money. So I reached out to the organizer and she figured out a way for me to go. And when I got there, I told my testimony, and I probably told too much of my testimony. But I joined that church subsequently. And that's kind of how it happened for me. You know, I heard God tell me, listen, it's not about you. And that was the light bulb that changed everything for me, because I heard him speak to me that you went through all of this stuff so that you can help somebody else. He must have known that I was going to be strong enough to handle it. I didn't know, because I feel like I was crazy that whole time, you know. But subsequently in writing and just publishing books and now having a coaching practice where I help other people to deal with these sorts of things, I can see now what he was saying, that is absolutely not about me. And so that's what helped me. Honestly, it was God, and just prayer and just giving my life over to him and realizing that I can't control any of this on my own, because when I do it, it all falls apart. But when I let him do it, it kind of flows, not kind of, it does flow very, very well. And he's the reason why I'm sitting here not looking like what I've been through.
And you know what? That's what the power of this testimony is all about. You know, the power of being able to say, I heard, I listened, and I did.
Yeah.
But to be able to give him the praise and the glory for what he's done for you. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
You have come a long, long way.
Thank you.
Let's see if we have a question or a comment from the audience.
First, I want to say thank you for sharing that incredible story, and congratulations on your strength and your power. I guess my question is, how do you instruct, or not instruct, but how do you reach out to women that may have went through something similar to you? And is there a difference between their age, if they're younger or if they're older, and how you share your story and help them get through their journey?
Great question. So as I was stating earlier, I do have a coaching practice now, and that's how I reach out to people. I also have a women's ministry that I utilize for the same purpose. Interestingly enough, God woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to write down this word lilac, which all I knew was a flower. So I wrote it down, and he said that it stands for a particular thing. So each letter it's an acronym basically. And so that's what my ministry and my coaching practice is named after, because that's what he gave me. And so what I do is I can help girls of all ages. And what I've also learned is it's not just women that I've been able to help. Men have also been coming to me for help, because you guys go through things as well. I didn't realize that when I started out. So I mince my words a little bit when it comes to the younger girls. I try not to give them as raw of a testimony. However, for the older women and like teen girls, I do, because they've been through it, And so writing is my base source. So I have workshops that I do with them that teach them how to write and what to write and how to go through their own timeline so that they can uncover memories that they've suppressed. And I tell them that it's going to be difficult. There are going to be emotions that are going to come up. You're going to feel some of those feelings that you felt before, but it's okay. And it's necessary for you to feel those things in order for you to be able to get to the other side, which is healing and wholeness. So it's a process, right? And I let them know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week or two. It's a process. It's a journey. You've been carrying this for a while. And because you've been carrying it for a while, it's going to take a while to get through it and get you to the other side. So I teach them, coping mechanisms, things to help them, because there are going to be triggers throughout life. There are things that people say out in the community right now that may trigger something in me, and so they're going to be faced with those things. So we talk through those things as well, and kind of how to handle those triggers and just different things like that. So, yeah. Thank you. Absolutely.
If I haven't heard a power of a testimony, I've heard one today.
Thank you.
And I want to commend you on, taking a challenge and turning it into a blessing to bless others. Because it only takes one life you save,
That's
right?
right.
One person you change for, somebody you've given hope for,
Yeah.
that makes that difference.
Yes.
So you should feel very, very proud of where you were to where you are today.
Thank you.
And I just, I pray for many more blessings upon the things that you're doing and that you're moving forward to help others.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you all thank me in thanking my guest today? Thanks again for joining another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now, where we do nothing but provide hope to others. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you next time.